There is something that every synthesizer needs, but no synthesizer has, and that would be an EQ section and a compressor that would help you shape your sound even more in the sound design process. So why no synthesizer has an EQ on board or even a compressor? Well, there's a reason for that. Modern synths are still based on vintage synthesizers from the 80s and the 90s. Some of them even use the exact same parts that vintage synthesizers used, like the ladder filter by Moog or the Steiner-Parker filter that have been here for ages. And none of those synthesizers had an EQ or a compressor on board. The reason no one cared about having an onboard solution for EQ and compression is pretty simple. Back in the day, there were no DAWs or even audio interfaces, so to record your synthesizer, you would just run it through a mixer or even some outboard gear. That way, your sounds would always go through an EQ and compression. Nowadays, less people use a mixer, and even less use the mixer creatively and not just a way to connect more gear at once. So most producers just use an audio interface and record their sounds directly in the DAW. And then you can use EQ plugins or compressor plugins to shape your sound even more, which is fine. Besides of all the sound design and the effects you can add to your sounds, a bit of compression and EQ at the end is something that every sound needs. Any given project has like, 40 EQ and compression plugins, and that can get quite boring and time consuming. And also I'm a very big fan of having your sounds ready and polished before you hit the record button. I love to commit to a sound and not to record dry sounds, which are kind of boring, to fix them in post. And for that, I think I found the absolute best solution, and that is the Golden Master Pedal by Endorphines. The Golden Master is a multiband processor that has compression, EQ, and mid-side processing, which is something I don't think has ever been done in a pedal form. This is the new black version, but it's exactly the same pedal as the one they released a few years ago, which is silver, and the only difference is the color and I think the knobs. It's fully stereo, it's easy to use, and you cannot imagine how impactful this pedal can be on any sound. The Golden Master combines so many things that you would need a mixer and some outboard gear to just get the same results. And as we all know, outboard gear is too expensive for most of us, so it's so cool that this pedal even exists. So now I think it's time to go through all the features of this pedal and show you how powerful it can be and all the amazing things you can do with it. So here it is, the Golden Master by Endorphines. As we said before, this is a true stereo pedal. You have 2 inputs and 2 outputs, which is always a great thing since you can connect any of your gear. On the top you have the volume knob and the input knob. This is your final output volume and this is an input gain for your signal. Normally you want that as low as possible, but you can crank it up to plus 10 dB and hit the compressor even harder. And also this pedal adds a very mild and beautiful sounding saturation. The volume knob is not just your output volume, it can also act as a mix knob. You have to hold this button right here, the VQ meter, and you can set your mix to 50% or 100%. This allows you to do parallel compression, which is also a great way to add some body to your sounds, and it's such a nice thing that they added it. Also, the VQ meter is a very nice touch. You have monitoring for your input and for your output. And now to the fun part. This pedal allows you to do mid-side processing, compression, and EQ. You switch modes with this button right here, and you have your 3 bands right here. Keep in mind that the bands are fixed. I'll put the numbers on the screen for you to check out, so you cannot control where the high is or the mids or the lows. These are prefixed for the pedal and they work for most sounds really good. The buttons below the knobs are there to mute bands, so you can focus doing like EQ only for the low and then going to the mid and then to the highs. This is really useful because you can actually listen to what you're doing on any band and then activate all bands to listen to the final result, and that works for all the modes. And also the buttons have another feature that allows you to hold and enable them for the compression. You can have none going through the compressor. I don't know if you can see that now, but they're kind of dimmed. So that means they're only going through EQ and the mid-side processing. So if you want them to hit the compressor, you have to enable them. So now let's listen to some sounds. We're going to start with the EQ and then move to the compressor and the mid-side processor. So this is our dry signal. When you engage the pedal, the first thing you have to do is to match your volumes. You can use the input and the volume. This is pretty much the same volume. And now we're going to go through the EQ. As we said, you can isolate bands. So now we're only listening to the low band. So let's just boost that just a bit. Now we're going to the mids. And finally, we're going to the highs. We're going to add some highs to the sound. So we went from this to this. Now let's move to the compressor side. Myself, like many people, still struggle to understand how compressors work. So the good thing is here, you don't have to do a lot of things. The compressor is also preset, the settings are preset. I'm gonna put the numbers on the screen. So you only have to set your threshold and then control each band separately. To easily understand what this pedal is doing, in the middle you have like normal compression. On the left, counterclockwise, you have like a softer setting, and on the right you have your hard compressor settings. So here's our sound. I'm gonna set our levels. And then we're gonna go to each band and see the compressor. Here's our dry tone. I think you can listen that the compressor does give some bite, some punch to your sounds. It works best when you're running a full mix through this pedal, but even in a single sound, it still does its work. It's a great tool to kind of glue your sound and give some more definition to each band. So lastly, we have to go to my favorite thing about this pedal, which is the mid-side processor. This is something that you don't often find in hardware gear. And what this thing does is that it enhances your stereo image or makes things more mono. Again, you have separate control on each band. You can take your mix and, for example, have your highs being more stereo, and of course your kick, for example, and your bass being mono. I use it most of the time like this. Like, these are my settings pretty much every time. I like things that are higher up the spectrum to be more stereo, and of course my basses and kicks, for example, to be always in mono. The mid-side processor is something that is quite subtle, but it makes such a huge difference. To demonstrate that, we're gonna do like an extreme example so you can listen to what it does. We're gonna start and have all bands in mono, and then we're gonna make them all stereo so you can understand how big of an impact this thing does. So this is our sound, and now it's in mono. You can listen how big of a shift that was, going from fully mono to a full stereo image. Another feature that the Golden Master has is Sidechain Compression. To demonstrate that, I'm going to use the OP1 that has just a kick pattern, and we're going to see how you can sidechain compress your signal by using an external input. So this is our sound. And to activate the sidechain compression, you have to press those two buttons together, and now you're in a sidechain mode. And you can have positive, it sounds like this. Now we have the kick running. And you can have the classic ducking. The cool thing is that you can do that separately for each band. So for example, have this thing right here. Now we're going to demonstrate the expression input of the Golden Master. I'm going to use the brand new +3 pedal, again by Endorphins and Loop Hop. This is a desktop sustain and expression pedal that can be so useful in many scenarios and studios. I'm currently using it as a regular expression pedal to control the Golden Master, but it has so many features for a tiny pedal that's inexpensive, it has an amazing build quality, and yeah, it would be kind of a blasphemy to try and explain what this thing does better than Loop Hop. So I'm gonna link his video in the description so you can see all the things you can do with a +3. To use an expression pedal, you just have to plug the expression into the expression input, and then you just hold the VU meter and turn the bands clockwise for positive and counterclockwise for inverted modulation. So to demonstrate what we can do with the +3, I'm gonna just add some highs and remove some of the lows and the mids. So now when I have my sound playing, I can use that. Lastly, we're going to run a full mix of a track I'm working on lately through the Golden Master and see if we can make it sound a bit better. The way I think I'm going to integrate this pedal to my production process is to create mix buses, for example a drum section, pad section, etc., and round those mix buses through the Golden Master to glue them together and do some compression. I may not run like a full mix, but I'm sure we're going to have some great results using it. So this is our dry mix. You can also do like creative effects with it. So we're going from this to this. Okay, so that went better than I expected. So you can clearly listen to what this thing can do. I mean, you can give any track some punch, some bite, and just with twisting a few knobs you get some very impactful results. So why is this pedal so special? Besides the fact that this thing has so many features and everything that it does is so useful to any musician, the reason I love it is the hands-on experience. It's true that you can do all the things that this thing does with plugins or even stock plugins in your DAW, but plugins are plugins and they're kind of boring. There's a reason why producers and engineers work with outboard gear and hardware, and it's not always about the sound. It's for that hands-on approach that is reactive, intentional, and experimental. The Golden Master is a pedal that you didn't know you needed it before you have it. As with all Endorphins products, this is very well priced for the things that it does. And I mean, if you compare this to any outboard EQ or compressor, then its price is even more unbelievable. The combination of effects the Golden Master has simply makes your sounds louder, crispier, and more powerful. It can be used with large pedal boards with lots of effects. It can be used as a compressor and EQ for your studio, as a mixing and mastering tool, or just as an extra way to polish your sounds and make them shine. I'm kind of obsessed with this thing. I mean, I don't want to record a sound before going through the Golden Master, and the reason is that it does make a huge impact. It's not like an effect that completely changes your sound. It just makes things sound better. So that was it. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please leave a like or subscribe, and I hope to see you on the next one. Love you.